Meredith TV talk show, we have Steve Zamarripa, CEO of La Ventana Treatment Center and Programs. He is a man who has dedicated his life to helping people find hope, healing, and sobriety. Steve's journey is one of remarkable resilience, compassion, and courage to shine through adversity and help others shine. Welcome to the Meredith Show, Steve.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate it.
I've got to say, I'm sure our viewers would like to know how you see yourself as the CEO or as a dad or all the things.
I think a dad first. That's my biggest accomplishment. I love my kids, my family. I have 5 grandkids on top of that, and they're just amazing. As far as the CEO, I think I'm just someone there to help guide the magic that the people who work there perform, and I enjoy it.
Well, you're so humble, and I'd like, if it's okay, to go back in time a little bit because your story is incredible. In fact, we're making history for viewers watching at home. I've never had a full 60-minute episode, but I've also never met such an inspiring individual. So, Steve, let's start with your childhood.
Okay.
You are in a long family with a history of working as a longshoreman. What is that? For people at home who don't know.
Longshoremen are people who work on the docks, and back in the days before they had cranes, they would get the big nets and they'd take them off the ship, and they'd get the big hooks and they'd move the cargo. It's a union, strong union, one of the strongest in America, and most of my family is in it. My grandfathers, my uncles, a lot of my cousins. It's part of our family. It's like the Bruce Springsteen song where you turn 18, you get a union card, and then you go down and get married. It's kind of the blue-collar family that we have and that we grew up in.
You also admit very openly that you called your father a raging alcoholic. You did not have the easiest childhood. Tell us about some of those memories, because I think it's extraordinary now that you're helping people heal from that very thing.
Alcoholism is a disease, and it's generational. I mean, my great-grandfather was one, my grandfather was one, my father was one. It just goes down from generation to generation. And it's not just the alcohol, it's the behavior. You don't learn to express yourself. We never talked about feelings. We never talked about emotions. No one ever asked you how you felt, how your day was. It was very scary.
You say scary, but there's actually a memory that I think people should hear about of what it was like to drive with your dad. And
yeah, he would pick me up from football practice, baseball practice. He always took me with him. My mother took the daughters. She was protecting them. So I spent a lot of time in the car with him, and we would be driving down the street and we would be on the wrong side. A car would be coming head on and they'd honk and he'd move out of the way. Whenever he picked me up from football practice, I put my helmet on to make sure that something would happen. And I prayed a lot. I would sit in the passenger car because I was afraid to speak up. I couldn't speak up. I had no one to tell. And I would pray to God that, please don't let me die. I'll be a good boy. And I would say my Hail Marys and Our Fathers while driving in the car with him. And the Catholic Church gave me hope, I would say, and got me through a lot of frightening experiences in that car.
I understand you were actually pulled over one time when your father was drinking and driving. What happened?
In those days, it wasn't a big deal to be drunk driving, so the policeman pulled us over, and my dad was drunk. He saw me next to him, and he says, well, get home safe, and that was it. Wash his hands. It wasn't until the Mad Mothers Against Drunk Drivers actually formed it that it became a serious crime. But back then, they just let us on our way, and I was sitting there going, stop him.
Wow.
But it just was in a place where you didn't know what was going to happen. You hoped you didn't die, and I prayed. And God was the thing that was watching over me, because my primary caregiver was wasted.
I got to tell you, listening to that, it's horrifying. And I have to say, what I think is most fascinating about you is somehow you said it was a fluke. You took the SATs, did phenomenally well, and got a full ride scholarship to UCLA, was it?
USC.
USC.
Big difference.
Yeah, thank you.
Trojans, not
Go
Bruins.
Trojans, thank you. So, but let's not diminish how amazing that was. Were you the first in your family to go to college?
Yeah, my mom had 11 kids in her family. My dad had 5, and we had hundreds of cousins. And my mom was the youngest, so I was one of the youngest of hundreds of cousins. And college was never discussed. We didn't go. We were union people. We were longshoremen. We were a blue-collar family. And I had no intention of going. And I had some friends in the Key Club. I still remember his name, Alan Yometsu, his little Japanese guy. And he said, "Hey, Steve, you taking the SAT?" I didn't know what that was. And I had another football player, Ray Mayo, who was taking those cards and learning words. He goes, "It's for the SAT." And I go, "What's that?" And Alan convinced me to take it, and I signed up and took it. And then all of a sudden, I started getting letters from colleges for engineering and math, and SC gave me a scholarship. I wasn't even sure I was going to go. I was like, okay, what else am I going to do? So I went to college.
You didn't just go to college. You did phenomenally well, and then you went on to grad school. Tell me how that happened and where you went. Columbia, right?
Yeah, I went to college, and I did well. I got hooked on international relationships, loved it. Did a semester in Madrid, lived in Spain. I ran with the Bulls.
Oh, my goodness.
Which was fabulous.
Yes.
And I knew I had to do something after that because I had this quest for knowledge. And I didn't know what Columbia was, but there was this guy at SC. His name was Mike, and he was from a rich, wealthy family in Rhode Island. And he was there for 6 years at SC. He would write his parents and say, "It's too crowded, I can't get classes, I gotta stay, pay more money." And he talked about Columbia. And so I applied there, got in. I also got scholarships to Denver.
Wow.
I got accepted to law school.
Oh my
But
goodness.
New York, it was the 80s, and Frank Sinatra was singing New York, New York, and it was like, I want to go there. I had no idea what I was going into. I didn't know what business school was.
This is unbelievable.
And I said, okay, and off I went, and I moved to New York. It was amazing, yeah.
Well, and what I think is also amazing is what happened after that, because like many entrepreneurs, you found yourself, for viewers watching at home, with a lot of opportunities and doors opening that you may not have had you not had all these scholarships. And I think somebody was absolutely looking out for you upstairs. And
I believe, yes.
It has to be.
Yes.
It has to be. And so walk us through the beginning of your work career after college, because this is a fascinating story in itself to me.
When I was in New York, my second year of the MBA program, I worked for a company. It was a German international freight forwarder. I actually worked in the Twin Towers before they were blown up.
Wow.
And we moved freight all over the world. I met a bunch of international people, did very well there. I loved it. And when it was time to come home, I was in the biggest harbor of the world, and I have international freight experience. And so I went to work for another company there. And then after 6 months or so, I said, I can do this myself. And I opened up a little company. I called it Air Ocean International. I had a little plane as a logo. And I just started running around and trying to get business, and it grew little by little. And I did it for about 20 years.
20 years,
Yeah, I think
and then at one point you took over your father's business. This was amazing to me as well.
Well, my father was a longshoreman, and he had worked for a company steady, meaning there's one company that did certain things, and he kind of contracted with them. And it was a family company, and they just closed it. And they just said, "Here, if you want it, take it." And he opened a company where they would go to the docks and weigh coffee beans and coffee bags, and they'd weigh different things. They were a certified weighmaster, and they'd give certificates. So he had a little warehouse. He got into trouble. He borrowed against the house, didn't tell my mom, and was in some financial trouble. And he says, "You want to come in and help?" And of course, at that time I said, "I'm
Not going to say no to your dad.
Yeah, and so we took the two companies and merged them together, and I just grew it, and we had several warehouses, and I ended up eventually selling it about 20 years later. That reason will come out later, but I got out, made a lot of money, had a great time, traveled the world. I had agents all over. I went all over Europe, Asia, Africa. It was an exciting thing, but at that point in my life, money was my main driver, and I wanted to make money. And we all know as you get older that money doesn't bring happiness or love.
Well, it's a lesson you learn through time, right?
Yes, it was.
And I think that looking back, you had a lot of lessons that came from your childhood, one of which came out in your first marriage. You were focused and committed to business goals, but you found that you were more guarded with your emotions, and it was probably aftermath of growing up in this home filled with alcoholism. Tell me about that.
Growing up, we couldn't share emotions. We couldn't talk about them. You either ate them or you drank them. Same thing with feelings. You ate them or you drank them. My mom had a eating disorder. She was very heavy. My dad was an alcoholic. There was no one to talk to. There was no one to ask guidance for.
Did anybody ever check on you and ask you when you were just afraid to talk? I mean, tell me about that.
No, I was a very quiet kid. I was a good kid. I just followed the rules, never said anything.
Wow.
Played alone a lot, isolated. You can't have friends over your house when your dad's walking around out of his mind. You can't do that. So a lot of it was just in isolation and not talking. And I never learned to communicate. I never learned to trust anybody because I couldn't. If you can't trust your caregivers, who can you trust? I trusted myself. And I learned how to survive. And I just took care of myself, which ignored other people, ignored friendships, ignored a lot of people. I was married for 10 years, had 3 kids, very involved in the kids' lives because there's a coach. We had a beautiful house in Hidden Hills, gated community. We were looking good, as they say, from the outside. Pool parties all the time, friends over. But my wife was lonely. And she said, I can't do this. I had no idea what she was talking about. And growing up in my environment, you couldn't cry. So I never cried in my life. And it wasn't until after my divorce that I remember driving down the road and this Dixie Chicks song came on about a woman singing about her divorce. And she's talking to her husband, say, they're 2 and they're 4. And how do I explain that you've changed your mind? And I just lost it right there. And I still remember I was on PCH and I pulled over. I think I cried for an hour. And it was the first time in 50 years, I think,
wow,
that I had ever cried. And at that point, I knew, I mean, it still brings tears to my eyes. At that point, something was wrong. Something is not right. This is not.
Well, you were living your life, and many would say, in survival for so many years.
Yeah.
And then you were committed, obviously, to the children, and you cared deeply about family, but you had to do some work with you. So tell me what you did.
I continued working, raising my kids, after knowing that there was something missing, something was wrong. So I said, okay, I sold my business. And I took a year off and I did all kinds of seminars. I did yoga.
You did like Tony Robbins.
I did Tony Robbins.
The Deepak work, Deepak Chopra.
Exactly. I did many seminars that really discovered things. The inner child was huge. It was so scary to go back and meet that little boy who I hated. He was weak. He was scared. He didn't say anything. I couldn't stand that little boy. And it took time to accept and to love who I was. Because if you don't love yourself, or accept yourself, you're never going to be happy. And that was a years-long process, trying to accept that little boy who I thought was a coward.
You know, and I think what's really interesting about what you're saying, and having coached so many people just in business, life comes through in your business. And I always say the greatest thing that holds us back is not circumstance or money, it's ourselves.
Yeah.
So my hat goes off to you for doing the work, for going there and not just saying, you know, my marriage fell apart, okay, and plowing through. You said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to figure this out in many ways. And I really admire that. You also opened up and shared with me previously that you went into therapy and that was helpful for you. Tell me about that.
Therapy was wonderful. It discovered things that I didn't even know existed, from sharing your feelings to having empathy for other people, for understanding, validating people's emotions. I just pushed through life, most of my life, and I learned that inner child, the little kid, he was driving the car, he was driving the bus, he was running everything, and I just didn't give a shit about anybody. I was focused on just moving forward, growing my business, surviving, and I realized through therapy, my God, so much was missing in life, and I wasn't happy. I made a lot more money back then, I had a lot more money back then, I flew first class everywhere back then. I did all that, but there was something missing. I didn't know what it was. I had no idea. I really didn't. And it took a year of therapy, seminars. I did Landmark, that was great. Debbie Ford helped me a lot. Deepak Chopra, all this stuff kind of set in until I realized I want to give back. I want to help. I want to help people so that they don't go through what I went through. Not that it was terrible. It's just generational trauma with alcoholism is just something that exists. And if you live it, you just live it. And you don't even know that you're lacking all of these emotional intelligence skills that most people have.
Well, I have to say, this is incredibly fascinating to me because you describe growing up in such a forgive my directness, but an unstable environment would be a kind way to say it. A lot of chaos, tremendous amount of fear. You went on not to get one scholarship, but two, get your MBA, create multiple businesses, and then realize, you know what? I need to do a lot more work because it's not bringing me joy. I think a lot of people can relate to this, believe it or not. But what I think would really help the viewers at home would be some insight on what people at home who have alcoholism in their family or they're suffering right now might take as first steps. Obviously, not everybody can take a year off, but you have built a company now that serves people in their darkest moments. But where do you start? How do you find the courage? Is it talking to somebody? When you look back, do you regret you didn't speak up and ask for help from maybe a counselor or somebody at school?
Definitely. The one thing I tell everybody, with clients to families, is that the disease is very powerful and you cannot do it alone. If you try to do it alone, you'll lose. It'll beat you every time. And when they say one day at a time, once you make a progress, you've got to come back the next day and attack it again and again. And it's not just alcoholism or drug addiction. It is an emotional way of living. It affects the people who the alcoholic lives with. So the kids, the spouses, the family is all affected in the sense of how they connect emotionally, how they share their feelings, how they're not allowed to cry. We couldn't do stuff like that. So
did they literally say, don't cry? Like,
I remember when I was a little kid, my cousin Frankie was crying. We were maybe 8 or 9, and his mom, my Aunt Mary, walked up to him and smacked him across the head and said, "Boys don't cry." While he's crying, she's hitting him.
Oh,
Boys
wow.
don't cry. And like I said, I didn't cry until that one time, and I think I was close to 50, and it just all came out. But you have to ask for some help. And the thing is, a lot of people think nobody will help me. I'm alone, and I felt that way most of my life. I didn't trust anybody. I couldn't. I grew up in a place where there was nobody. And some people grow up and say, "Oh, I had this teacher that affected me." I never had a teacher that did anything for me.
I want to stop you because when we've talked previously, you shared you literally didn't have a mentor. How did you do this? How did you get such good grades despite having no support at home, no financial support, no knowledge of what to do next? How did you do it?
Going through high school, I never took a book home. I never did homework. Any homework I did it during class. It was I don't know, it was kind of easy for me. In grammar school, I used to do other kids' works who couldn't do it, like the guy who would beat you up if you didn't do his work. So I said, okay, I did their work. So
Wow.
it just came easy to me. But it was a school where we didn't have AP classes. It was in Harbor City. It wasn't one of the wealthy. The highest I went was trigonometry. I never took calculus. So maybe it was an easier program. I don't know.
No,
I'm not
no,
sure.
I'm not going to let you go there.
Okay.
Obviously, you're
Yeah.
brilliant. I have to make that clear statement, knowing your life story and also the impact you've had on others. And I would just say, did you ever come up against roadblocks? Like you mentioned, you were one of 10 Mexican Americans in college that you know of. What was that like?
When I went to SCI, of course, I did not feel like I belonged there. I mean, there was none.
Not many people look like you.
No, it was very strange. And but I've always just kind of pushed through things. Somewhere in a movie somewhere, I heard John Wayne say, "Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go." And that's how I kind of lived my life. So I never thought about the adversity. I just kind of pushed through. But my parents didn't teach me Spanish because they didn't want their kids to have the accent.
Wow.
So I went to see, and most of the kids who were Mexican American were from Garfield High School, the famous movie, and they're from East LA. They spoke Spanish. I didn't, so
you were even an outsider.
I
with
was
them.
an outsider with them, and then
Wow.
you had all the kids from Newport, Palos Verdes, La Cañada, who were driving Porsches. I didn't fit in there either, so it was kind of a quagmire, a quicksand.
But did you have fun in college?
I joined a fraternity.
Okay.
And they accepted me. There were still a lot of Mexican jokes like, "Oh, my nickname was Zipper," because no one could say Zamarripa. So, "Hey, Zip, where's your leaf blower today?" Were they laughing with me or were they laughing at me? I don't know. I look back. I always felt like I didn't belong, but it was a fraternity. A lot of guys, we had fun with parties, and there were the girls and stuff, so I kind of fit in there. I ended up leaving the fraternity in my junior, senior year, and was more of a student. And
How did you get such good grades that you got a scholarship to grad school?
I studied hard, actually. The last 2 years, I buckled down. I studied really hard, and I had, I think, some. I was unique. I knew politics. I knew international relations. A lot of kids in college are just kind of fooling around. They're going to go back to their wealthy homes and not worry about the future. So I don't know. I think I had a little spark or something in my head. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it was. I didn't have this master plan. Honestly, I was kind of like the rat in the maze where if there's cheese there, I'll go. If there's no cheese, I won't go. If I go here, there's no cheese. Maybe you'll fail, but you'll come back out and go find the cheese. So
sounds like an amazing survival technique. Just focus on the next step, and then you were there.
Exactly.
So speaking of next steps, you're so humble. You went through all these businesses. You took over your dad's. You totally turned it around. By the way, we didn't really fully explore that. Then you said you eventually sold it. And what I think is really interesting is your sister offered to go into business with you. She actually inspired you to get into what you're doing today. So tell me a little bit about that.
When I sold the business and I was doing all this soul searching and finding out what I wanted to do, and I knew I wanted to give back and do something, my sister had worked for Betty Ford, the foundation. Betty Ford, obviously the president's wife, was the first celebrity to come out and say, I was addicted to pills. I think she was addicted to Valium. She opened up the center. And this was back in the time where there was no internet. So she was a big salesperson. She would go to conferences.
For Betty Ford.
For Betty Ford. And I went to some of her conferences. I met a lot of people. And I was like, wow, this is really a fascinating industry. The people were wonderful. Everybody was helping. They had a calling to give back. And I told my sister, let's do this. Let's open up a place. And so she said, fine, let's do it. And so I went and bought a big old house in Malibu. It was Tommy Lee Jones' old house, and I forgot
another celebrity, probably.
Yeah, and I bought it, and we opened up. The day I opened up, my sister said, "I can't join you."
Wow. Okay, so stop. It was her idea. She inspired you.
Well, it wasn't her idea. I asked her to help me.
Okay.
Because I wanted to do it, and she said, "Do it." But it goes back to growing up in low self-esteem, the fear I can't do it, I'm not enough, and she just got scared, and so I opened up this big place. I had no sales. I had no nothing. And that place failed. I lost millions.
Millions. Wow. And what's really interesting, though, is you now have, is it 9 locations with La Ventana?
10 locations.
10 as of today. I love it. Yeah. So obviously, you've come a long way. But before you really opened up La Ventana where you are now, you got into eating disorders as well.
At the same time as that, I got into eating disorders. I'd met some people, and it was kind of a new discovery, the eating disorder. And people had it, but they wasn't up in front. And so I opened outpatient on that, and I got into that. And I opened up offices in San Francisco, Santa Rosa, San Jose, Ventura.
This is crazy. I'm stopping you right now. Like, everything you do is big. I mean, without a mentor, I want to know, how did you have, in my world we say chutzpah, or the vision to do these bold things? Like, and first of all, your gorgeous heart. You know, eating disorders are, I mean, talk about ripping families, and it's detrimental to everybody involved, not only the individual suffering. So, I mean, how did you do that? I mean, a lot of people see an opportunity and they say, nope. And even your sister, you know, who loves you, I'm sure, tremendously, said this is too much at one point. So how do you see it and just go?
You know, I look at it like you jump in the water's warm, the water's cold, or you jump in and there's a rock there and you break your head. So I just jump in and do things. Some things work, some things don't.
And you're not afraid?
Fear was never a problem. It was the excitement of it actually was exciting, opening up new places and meeting people. The industry was fascinating. The thing about eating disorder, there are a lot of man-haters.
Really?
It's predominantly a female disease, and it's the highest disease of suicide in any mental illness in America.
Goodness. So it's heartbreaking.
It breaks your heart. And what I discovered is that the percentage of rape in eating disorders is huge. That and it's not rape from a guy you meet in the garage. It's family rape.
So what
And
you're
I was
actually
blown away.
saying, I just want to, for
blown
viewers
away.
at home, is that incest is off at the beginning of this eating disorder. It can be
I
the
wouldn't say
trauma.
it's the beginning, but it was popular, and I was just blown away. I was shocked. I had no idea.
That's very disturbing to discover how frequently it comes up in that industry. So you ultimately decided, despite multiple locations, I can't believe how many you just named, to walk away from that.
I went from outpatients, then I did inpatient eating disorder. I had 3 houses, and I realized that my heart wasn't there. My heart was still back with the addiction and the mental health. And so I sold that division, and we concentrated on addiction and mental health, and then we started to rebuild again. And
is that how La Ventana broke? Let's hear the story behind La Ventana.
The story.
How did you begin?
I began in that big house in Malibu. I opened up for addiction, and
was it called La Ventana back then?
yeah, it was this big house, and one day
how did you decide?
I was sitting upstairs. We hadn't even opened, and it was in the hills of Malibu, and this bird flew by the window, and I just said, wow. And La Ventana means window in Spanish, so we were the window to recovery.
Love
Our
it.
first logo had this window with a little bird in the middle, which it's morphed since then, but that's how we started. And we were the window to recovery, and we still are.
Now you're so humble. How many years have you been in this, I guess you could say, this business?
18 years now.
18 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
I tell people I had no gray hair when I started.
Oh boy. Well, it comes no matter what. And I think it's obviously come with a lot of wisdom. And for people at home who aspire not just to get out of difficult situations, whether they're dealing with an addiction, but also are looking for courage. I mean, I think you're incredibly inspiring for people who want to find hope. What do you say to those people? Maybe they want to open up a business or they can't see the end to what's going on. What do you say to them?
The fear is something that prevents people from doing a lot of things.
Yes.
And asking for help is a big setback. There's an old saying about the ugly caterpillar who turns into the butterfly, that the day came when the pain to remain the same was greater than the fear to fly.
I love it.
And so when the pain to just be in this life that you're not happy or you don't like is so great, then you fly. And you may fly into a wall and crash, or you may fly into something, but go for it and don't do it alone. Don't ask for help. I mean, it's hard for a lot of people to ask for help. I never could ask for help ever in my life. And
do you do it now?
On a small scale, but I still find it hard to ask for help. But I do give people opportunities, and they do help because they're fabulous people.
I need to tell you, you're, again, so humble. You don't just give opportunities. I happen to know a little bit about some of your employees at work, one of which enjoys music. And she said to you, like, I think it would be cool to like produce music. So you're like, well, what would it be? You know, look into what it would cost to create a little recording studio. And so you just did that.
Yeah, we did. We have a recording studio at our place. Yeah.
I mean, that's not normal. Yeah. Why do you say yes? I mean, you didn't have a mentor, but I guess what I'm saying is you've become an incredible mentor to so many of your employees. So why did you choose to do that? Because
they do the magic. I mean, I can provide a platform, and I enjoy seeing them do it, but they have the magic. The therapists have the magic. This musician who is a drug and alcohol recovery coach or counselor, they have the magic. I don't have the magic to take somebody and transform them, but I see them come in, and I see 90 days later it's a different person, and it's amazing. I get to talk to them. I don't spend that much time with the clients, but some of them do well. Some you give opportunity to, and they do fabulous, and they shine, and they make things good. Some you give opportunity to, and they fail. And when they fail, they end up blaming you. And that's what I see. The people who are successful do it. And I say jump in, and at La Ventana, our training program is sink or swim. So you go out and do it, and they put their own touches on it. Each house has a clinical director. Each house is different, has a personality of each person that does it. And some of them are afraid to do it. Some of them, I don't think I can, but you throw them in there and they shine. But you got to be able to pick the right people so that they will do what they were put on earth to do. And I never recruited people. I mean, for some reason, the universe sent people who had a calling to help, and they just showed up. I don't know where they came from.
You have amazing staff, if I may say.
The staff is amazing, I agree.
Like spectacular,
Yes.
One of which has become a dear friend of mine. I thank her for helping me discover your story because, again, I think anybody watching would just simply say, wow, for the man who said you didn't have a mentor, you probably couldn't even count the level of impact you've had, not just on your staff, but individuals. How does that make you feel?
I wish I had had a mentor. I made a lot of mistakes. I lost a lot of money. If I had someone, give me a little bit of help. But if I had asked for help, I could have found the mentor. The problem is I could not ask anybody for help. I had to figure it out myself. And by doing that, you figure out things after you make mistakes.
And they can be expensive, as you pointed out.
In business, when you make a mistake, it's very expensive, yeah. And I learned the hard way, yeah. But that's who I was at the time, and that was my personality. I couldn't have changed it. But it wasn't until I got into La Ventana that I realized the inner child. He was running things that I realized you can't do it alone, how you need people, the need for connection and sharing your feelings, and crying again was a big deal, and just letting people into your life that I never had done before.
Well, you kind of walk the talk. You don't just talk the talk. And the reason I'm saying that is because you had a first failed marriage, but you're happily married now. Tell me about that.
This is my third marriage. Second marriage, I was married for 10 years too, and that, again, I think it was problems with my personality and who I was, and I made a mistake, and I had an affair, and it was the stupidest thing I did, and it was sad, and so that ended, and now I met a woman who is highly sensitive, and she's taught me so much about connection and feeling and family, and we now have 5 grandkids together.
Amazing.
Our 2 families, and it's I met someone who what does it say, completes you, or whatever the magic words are.
Yeah.
And we have a good life. We still have struggles, and her biggest complaint is I don't share enough of my life. And so I am constantly
You're still working on opening up.
I'm still working on sharing my life, exactly. And that's something that you just don't fix. If you grow up in a generational traumatic environment, dysfunctional, you don't just go to therapy for 3 weeks and all of a sudden you got it. It's like the alcoholic who says, I got 20 years sobriety, but it's one day at a time. I have people like that who say, if I go out and have a drink tomorrow, I'm going to go out and lose it. And they struggle every day still after 20 years. So learning how to share your emotions, your feelings, and connecting, it's something I have to work on daily.
Speaking of working on it daily, like there are so many things that we have for rituals for success. What are some things that are working for you now? Because the company is grown, your children are growing up, and you have great relationships. It wasn't always that easy from what I understand. So tell me what's working and how you made it work.
I think it's letting people do what they were put on earth to do, and maybe doesn't agree with my idea or what I think things should run. I don't micromanage. I let people develop and create and make magic. Sometimes it's not the most fiscally responsible thing to do. We're not the most successfully profitable company out there, but we pay our bills, and we know we have a little profit, and we continue to help. And we're unique because we're not run by a venture capitalist, some MBA guy in New York who's looking at a spreadsheet
making those
saying,
decisions.
fill these beds, these are empty. Well, maybe the client isn't right for us, or maybe that bed will be empty because we're not going to take it.
I've heard on good word that you will scholarship people in. Like you care much more about their wellness than turning a person away. So not only are you generous with opportunity, but you are a generous man. I think there are a lot of people at home who would like to know what the greatest joy is for running La Ventana, because there's so much reward, I'm sure, in healing people, but there's also probably reward in the mentoring that you're doing, and also knowing that even if sometimes people fail, they can come back. Tell me about that.
The reward is helping people and seeing the transformation when they come in to when they leave. We do scholarship, but only if the person is invested in their recovery. If they're here because dad took away their BMW and they get it back after rehab, no, I'm not going to do that.
That makes perfect sense.
but if you're here and you can't afford it to go on, but I think the biggest reward is every day I learn something about myself through the program. Example was in the beginning we have family weekend where families come together with their clients, we call them, and they share questions and they say, you hurt me doing this, I'm disappointed at this, I love you because of this, and they cry and everything. And at the end of the session, one young man stood up and said, well, my family didn't show up, I'm all alone, nobody cares about me, so I can't do it. And I made him stand in the middle of the room, and I said, all the clients in La Ventana, stand up. If this guy called you at 2 in the morning and he's on the cliff, he's going to use drugs again, would you help him? They all raised their hand. And so I said, go up there and give him a hug. So all 15, 20 clients went around, they gave him a hug, and I saw his face. He was scared out of his mind. He had never felt this before.
Wow.
And I said, young man, this is love. These people will help you. You have people who will help you, who want to help you. You just never experienced this or asked for it. And at that moment, I realized that I was that guy. And so the learning process, the personal growth that I get out of the program is huge, because I am as damaged as my clients.
I always say, put me in my grave if I'm done growing, learning.
Exactly.
And I think, thank you, you remind me of that phrase a lot. And one of the things I love about Tony Robbins is when he talks about burning the boats. He says,
yeah.
You know,
exactly.
Move forward in life and don't have an exit strategy.
Boats,
just keep going, burn those boats. And I feel that in many ways, hearing your life story, you know, it's like so many things have not been perfect, to say it kindly, you know, but on your third marriage, you are really committed to family first, is what you've told me. And it wasn't always a clear, easy path, because you were so focused, as you admitted earlier, on money. What brings you joy now, and how do you keep recreating it?
Family brings me a ton of joy. My children even had enough courage probably 2 years ago to sit down and write me a letter saying, as they grew up, that they missed some of the emotional parts of growing up, that I wasn't there, and they wanted change that and become closer and connected. And this was just a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And I mean, I cried. I thought I was this great dad, and I realized I was just a dad, and I missed out because I was working on some of their stuff. And so we are actually redeveloping our relationship as adults, children, you know, because you can't treat them as children all the time. They are now adults.
Yes.
And you may have opinions, but you got to shut up because they don't want to hear it. And I'm working on that, and that's wonderful. I have some family members still in the program. I'm still working with them. And just kind of helping and seeing young people be successful in their careers, see them at La Ventana grow, see them learn, and see when all the employees get together and the happiness of helping other people. Obviously, it's not la la land every day. It's hard work, and the clients are very difficult.
I'm sure there's never a dull day over there, though.
Yeah, there's never a dull day. But you know what? I tell people at the end of the day, when I drive home from work, I feel good about what I'm doing, who I am, and feeling good is good enough.
Yeah, thank you. That's so simple. Sometimes, as you said, people are chasing the money. And I remember a couple of years back in my speaking career, I had a breakthrough year, and I was doing my numbers, and I looked at them, and I thought I never made more money in my business and in my life. Probably zero joy.
Yeah.
So then I remembered that I hadn't gone back to my high school to give a speech yet, because somebody in my high school gave a speech when I was in school that changed the course of my life. They said less than 1% of the world sets goals. So if you set goals, because you have a plan, you're 99% ahead of the rest of the world. But on the flip side of that, what I loved about what you shared was you didn't have a roadmap as a kid with the dream to open up La Ventana. No. So looking back, any regrets? Would you have changed anything or done something sooner? Would you have asked for help sooner? You mentioned missing out on mentorship.
I think asking for help, I didn't know how to. And I think if people are starting their own business, I would say, yes, ask for help and learn. I mean, like I said, I've had people who work for me who have done well, and probably 5, 6, 7 of them now have their own business.
Wow.
And that's wonderful. And I'm not mad that you're not loyal to La Ventana. They're helping more people in different cities. And I think that's fabulous.
Amazing, actually.
And so they came, learned, and got help, asked for it, and did it. I think that's probably the only regret that I have. I opened some places, some were successful, some were not. I've failed, I've succeeded, I've done both. Those aren't regrets. The regret would be not trying. At least I tried, and some did well. But other than that, I would just say you can't do it alone, anything. Whether it's recovery, whether it's life, whatever, you can't do it alone.
What are some of the lessons, whether it was traveling the world when you took off and working with people like Tony Robbins and Deepak Chopra? I mean, are you a meditator? Because Deepak Chopra is big on that.
Yeah.
You know, like what works for you because there are so many modalities and tools to live a better life, to continue to improve ourselves. We could probably do a whole show on that. But I'd love to know, what are your favorites? What are some of the practices that have helped?
Some of my favorite things is to be in the office and strategize and look at different things, look at numbers, look at what we can do, look at what we are doing, look at how people are progressing, and just kind of vision the next step. And I love, it's like playing Monopoly. It's like a game. And you kind of take your key people and you let them rise, let them do great things, and just kind of move the pieces around the board and develop things. It's I wouldn't say it's a game, but it's fulfillment intellectually and emotionally that helps me feel good about myself.
I think knowing that you're out there in the world, there need to be more Steves in the world, just nose to the grind in many ways, very humble. I'm amazed by how humble you are with what you've accomplished and been through. What do you say to people at home watching who say, like it's easy for you to say, there you are now, I'm in a tough spot, I don't have a mentor. You mentioned you wish you spoke up. What would you do if you were them at home, if you needed a mentor or somebody, as you said? Because I agree, I've had my own company for 12 years. I would not be sitting here, not only the host of a TV show for 12 years on the Motivation and Success TV network, but living my dream, speaking and sharing stories of courage like yours. So what's your message that you want to be known for and remembered for? And what are the lessons that you want people at home to really think about when they're not feeling as courageous?
I think don't listen to the negative speak talk. We all have this thing in our head that, no, you can't do that. You can't
so
do that.
Important.
What's the matter with you? You can't do that. Try it. And don't be afraid to fail.
Yes.
It was Master Yoda in Star Wars who said that the master has failed more times than the apprentice has tried. It's okay to fail. It's okay to try something. And you can't do it alone. That's a common theme. Please reach out for help.
When you say reach out, that's overwhelming. You said jump. I love that.
Just jump.
Just jump.
And if you land on your feet, fine. If you break a leg, you break a leg.
But you're still moving.
Yeah. I was in a motorcycle accident when I was 19. I broke both my legs.
Oh my goodness.
I was in a wheelchair at SC for a whole semester.
Oh my goodness. Talk about overcoming adversity.
Yeah.
Time.
I had an electric wheelchair all over SC and I was driving around. But I'm not saying get on a motorcycle and be an idiot, but try things and don't be afraid. You got this little voice in your head. It's full of fear. It's full of caution. It's full of negative speak talk, especially if you're generational trauma. Don't let that take over.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible, not only wise advice, but, I think for people at home, if you know that you are looking to make a change, I love this quote. I think it changed my life. I learned it when I was 14. The greatest hazard of all is to risk nothing. For those who risk nothing, do nothing, have nothing, are nothing. I believe that with all of my heart.
Yes.
Not to diminish people who are sitting in fear, but to remind them on the other side of that is so much. Could you imagine a life where you said no to going to college, no to opening up these businesses?
I can't imagine a life because that is my life, but I really had no vision. I just kind of said, okay, let's try something. Like I said, there's cheese there, so I went for it. If you see some opportunity, take it because it's going to be gone tomorrow. If there's something available or something that excites you, that you want to do or that is available, jump on it. Because if you wait and think it through it and go down all the negatives, what can happen, what can't happen, it's not going to happen.
Thank you.
So
Good
make
point.
it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people, it's very common, get paralyzed in indecisive moments. And I have a mentor who always says, she says, money loves speed. Meaning, if you make a decision faster, you're either going to move forward or fail faster. But eventually, if you hold tight, if you never ever give up, you're going to get to the goal.
Yeah, giving up is not even in the cards. I mean, even in the face of adversity, if things are looking bad. And I've had some days where I couldn't make payroll. I was freaking out. I mean, there were times where it was really scary. But you can't just give up and say, "Oh my God, I didn't make it." No, there's a way to get over that, and you can do it. And I've gone up and down, and the business is erratic, and it's not just about the business; it's about the people. That's what you got to remember. It is people. We are just, they say, we don't make furniture, we don't make, vases. All we do is we have people who talk. I mean, think about it. That's a very strange business. I mean, we have no product. So it's the people that make it happen. And that's the wonder of what we do.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is.
I would like to think, as we round out our interview, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about how you'd like to be remembered and what is your legacy, because you have impacted thousands and you will continue to with 10 locations in your life, God willing. So have you thought about what your legacy is?
I would like to be remembered as a father who broke the chain of alcoholism in a family that goes back many generations. I have 3 kids. One's getting her PhD at Harvard right now. One's at UCLA Law School. One's a nurse practitioner in Sacramento.
Wow.
She just had the baby. Other 2 are doing well. They don't have drug addiction, alcoholism, and in a disease that goes from family to family to family. I feel like that chain was broken. It wasn't me, it was them, obviously, but
you get some credit. Let's face it.
I think that's my proudest thing is my children are they're not alcoholics, they're not drug addicts.
And the legacy of La Ventana, tell us about that.
It will go on. I'm sure the people who are there now will continue. I'm getting at the point where I got to slow down. Your mind says you can work till you're 80, but I thought I could, but my body says, dude, man, it's like, you got to go home. You can't work these 12-hour days anymore. Yeah, I mean, you're tired. Your brain's tired. So
yes.
I'm getting at the point where I would like to somehow pass it on and sell it to people who will continue with the mission. And the mission is just helping. There was no grand, strategy or mission statement. It was just, I want to give back. I want to be of service. And the people that are there are the same thing. The leadership's amazing.
You are amazing. And I want to thank you so much for being on the Meredith Show, being willing to go there and share some painful memories of the past that I think will be etched in people's memories forever as an extraordinary inspiration. And if you're watching at home and you're motivated to reach out to Steve, you can see all of his information provided on the screen. He and his staff would welcome your call or email. I just want to say thank you again for coming on the show. And for those watching at home, I know you know somebody out there doing something amazing. Whatever you do, don't keep it to yourself. Reach out to us and take a little time to share that story and shine and share the love. Thanks so much for watching. And Steve, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful.
If you have an amazing story of courage, our producers at The Meredith Show would love to hear from you. Email us at hello@themeredithshow.com. And if you'd like even more stories of courage on your feed, be sure to subscribe to The Meredith Show on YouTube, and you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram under The Meredith Show.